They said the night she was born, the moon refused to shine. Clouds gathered and covered the stars as though the heavens themselves could not bear witness to what was about to happen in the small mud hut at the edge of Umyohia village. Her mother, Adiku, screamed until her voice cracked, gripping the raffia mat as the midwives whispered frightened prayers. And then, when the child finally came into the world, there was silence, the kind of silence that makes grown men tremble. The midwives froze. Their hands shook. For the baby that lay on the mat was not ordinary. She was a girl with two heads, both wailing at once, as if one voice was not enough to announce her arrival. One head cried with a piercing shriek, while the other made a softer, almost sorrowful sound. Adiku's eyes widened in terror before she fainted, leaving the midwives to lift the child with trembling hands. Word spread like wildfire. By morning, the entire village knew. Old men spat on the ground and said it was a curse. Women pulled their children closer, whispering that the gods were angry. Some called her a demon child, others swore she was an omen of great things to come. But no one could deny that her presence filled the village with dread. Her father, Okeke, was torn. On one side, he loved his daughter, his blood, his flesh. On the other, he feared what the village might do. Already, whispers reached his ears, "Throw her into the river before she brings destruction upon us. She is not human, Okeke, she is an abomination." He stood guard by the doorway of their hut every night, clutching his machete, in case anyone dared to carry out what their tongues suggested. The girl was named Emarachi, meaning the grace of God. But villagers never used that name. To them, she was simply Nwani Isi Ebuo, the girl with two heads. As she grew, something even stranger began to happen. The two heads had two different personalities. One head was calm, thoughtful, and gentle, speaking only when necessary. The other was fiery, quick to anger, and spoke words that chilled even grown men. Sometimes, in the dead of night, that second head would mutter in a language no one understood, its eyes glowing faintly as though lit by fireflies trapped beneath the skin. Adiku would cover her child with cloth, crying silently. She loved Emarachi but feared her. And deep down, she knew the truth of the night Emarachi was conceived. For there was a secret she had never told anyone, not even Okeke. A secret that could explain the curse of two heads, a secret that could destroy her if it ever came to light. The village priest, a crooked-backed old man named Motsi Enyuora, insisted Emarachi be brought to the shrine. He said the gods must be consulted. Okeke resisted at first, but the pressure grew too heavy. On the appointed day, the child, barely 3 years old, was taken to the shrine at the heart of the forest. The air there was thick with the smell of blood sacrifices, the ground dark with ancient stains. Emarachi's calmer head whimpered and cried for her mother, while the other head laughed, a cruel, mocking laugh that made even Enyuora pause. When the priest threw the cowries on the ground and chanted, he suddenly stopped, his eyes bulging in fear. He refused to speak, but his silence spoke louder than words. Trembling, he declared only one thing before sending them away: "This child is not of this world. Protect her if you can, but know this, her time will come, and when it does, you will not be able to stop it." From that day forward, strange things began to happen around Emarachi. Chickens would die suddenly when she walked past. Pots of water would boil without fire. Children who mocked her at the stream would later fall sick, burning with fevers no medicine man could cure. Some said it was her fiery head causing the disasters, others believed both heads were one in spirit, punishing those who wronged her. Still, Adiku's secret haunted her. The memory of that night would not leave her. She remembered the strange traveler who came to the village years ago, tall, with piercing eyes and a voice that sounded like thunder. She remembered how he charmed her, how she fell into his arms while Okeke was away. And she remembered the way his skin shimmered faintly under the moonlight, not like any man she had ever known. He disappeared by morning, leaving only the weight of shame in her heart. When she later realized she was pregnant, she prayed Okeke would never suspect. But when Emarachi was born with 2 heads, Ediku knew. That man was not human. And Emarachi was his child. Years passed, and Emarachi grew into a young girl. The calm head grew more beautiful, soft-spoken, and intelligent, while the fiery head became sharper, more cunning, with a gaze that unsettled anyone it fell upon. People avoided her. Men spat when she walked by. Some swore she carried death in her eyes. But there were others, men from far villages, who traveled just to catch a glimpse of her, whispering that she was not cursed but chosen. The tragedy began one rainy season night when thunder tore the sky in half, and Emarachi's fiery head spoke words that made Ediku's blood freeze. It said, "Mother, I know what you did. I know who my father is." Ediku's heart stopped. The child had never been told. No one had ever spoken of it. Yet the fiery head smiled, its teeth gleaming in the dim light. "Should I tell father?" it whispered. Ediku fell to her knees, trembling, begging the child to stay silent. But the fiery head only laughed, louder and louder, until its echo filled the entire hut. From that night on, Emarachi began to change. Shadows seemed to move with her. At night, villagers swore they heard 2 voices singing from the edge of the forest, one sweet like honey, the other deep and haunting. Crops began to fail. The river dried strangely in one section. And the elders gathered secretly, debating whether Emarachi must finally be sacrificed to save the village. But killing her would not be so easy. For the fiery head had already begun to show power none of them could comprehend. Okeke began to notice it first, the way the shadows in their hut seemed longer whenever Emarachi was around, as if they bent toward her. At night he sometimes woke to see her fiery head staring at him with eyes that glowed faintly red, unblinking, unbreathing, as though it wasn't part of a child at all. The calm head would be asleep, innocent and unaware, while the other watched him as if judging his every thought. He told himself it was only his imagination, but the truth gnawed at him like termites on wood. The whispers in the village grew louder. The elders said famine would consume the land if Emarachi was not dealt with. Crops were failing mysteriously, goats giving birth to deformed kids, and 3 children had drowned at the river under strange circumstances. Each tragedy was blamed on the 2-headed girl. Men muttered angrily, their wives pressed them to act, and soon a secret council was held under the Iroko tree at midnight. One of the elders, Nena, stood and spat into the sand. "We must end this abomination before it ends us. The gods are angry. This girl carries a curse not fit for the living." But another, Yud, shook his head. "And if you are wrong? What if she is chosen by the gods? Kill her, and we bring greater wrath upon ourselves." They argued for hours, but in the end, fear triumphed over caution. It was decided. Emarachi must die before the next full moon. But Emarachi already knew. The fiery head whispered to her mother as she combed the girl's hair. "They plan to kill us, mother. Even father knows." Ediku froze, the comb falling from her hand. No, you are lying," she cried. But deep in her soul, she knew it was true. The fiery head tilted its lips into a cruel smile. "Don't worry, mother. They will try, but they will fail." That night, Ediku dreamt of fire consuming the village, people screaming as the 2-headed child walked through the flames untouched. She woke in sweat, praying desperately to the gods of her ancestors to spare them. But there was no answer, only the sound of Emarachi humming in the corner, 2 voices in one body blending in a song that made Ediku's heart tremble. The day of reckoning came sooner than expected. A group of men armed with machetes and torches came at night, led by Elder Nena. They stormed into Okeke's compound, shouting, "Bring out the demon child." Bring her before us. Okeke stood in the doorway with his machete raised, but there were too many of them. They pushed him aside, dragging Amarachi from her mat as Adiku screamed and clawed at them. The calm head wept bitterly, crying for her mother, but the fiery head, oh, the fiery head only laughed. They dragged her to the village square, where the shrine stood waiting, its carved idols glistening in the torchlight. Elder Nana lifted his machete, ready to strike. But before the blade could fall, the fiery head spoke in a voice that was not human. You dare raise your hand against me? Foolish mortals. The torches flickered violently, then burst into sudden flames that consumed their holders. Men screamed, dropping their weapons, but the fire clung to their skin like oil. The ground shook. The shrine's idols toppled, splitting in half as though struck by invisible lightning. And in the chaos, Amarachi rose to her feet. The calm head still cried, begging them to stop, but the fiery head stared at the burning men with satisfaction. Now you will know the truth, it said. Now you will see who I am. Elder Nana tried to crawl away, his skin charred, his voice hoarse. What are you? He croaked. The fiery head leaned close, her eyes glowing brighter than the flames around her. I am the daughter of two worlds. My father is not of this earth. And you dared to raise a hand against me. With that, the flames roared higher, consuming the square. By morning, half the elders were dead, the shrine was nothing but ash, and the villagers fled in terror. Amarachi stood untouched at the center, her calm head unconscious, her fiery head grinning like the very face of doom. Okeke fell to his knees, broken. He realized now that this was beyond him, beyond the village, beyond anything he could fight. His daughter, his own blood, was something neither human nor spirit, but something far greater, something darker. And Erika knew the truth she had buried for years had finally come to light. The strange traveler, the man with eyes like thunder, he was Amarachi's father, and he had not been a man at all. The fiery head turned toward her mother, smiling cruelly. He is coming back, mother. And when he does, this world will bow. The night after the massacre at the shrine, the village of Umuohia did not sleep. Women packed hurriedly, clutching their children, while men argued whether to flee or stay. Some wanted to abandon the land entirely, others wanted to build a wall of charms and sacrifices around the girl's family. But all agreed on one thing: Amarachi was no longer just a child, she was a danger none of them could control. Okeke sat in his compound with his head in his hands, staring blankly at the ground. He could still hear the screams of the elders as fire devoured them. He could still smell the burning flesh. His daughter, his own blood, had done that. Yet part of him wanted to protect her. How could he kill what had come from his own flesh? But another part whispered that she was not his. She was another man's child. Or worse, something not of this world at all. Erika was trembling in the corner, watching Amarachi sleep. The calm head rested peacefully, innocent as a dove. But the fiery head's lips were curled in a faint smile, as if it were dreaming of something far away, something only it could see. Erika's heart ached. She wanted to cradle her daughter, to kiss her, to whisper that she was loved. But fear froze her every movement. That night, thunder rolled across the skies though no rain followed. The wind howled unnaturally, carrying whispers that made dogs bark and goats bleat in terror. And then, in the dead of night, Amarachi's fiery head opened its eyes and said calmly, as if speaking in her sleep. He is near. Erika's heart nearly stopped. She clutched her wrapper tightly and whispered, Who? Who is near? The fiery head turned slowly toward her, its eyes glowing faintly like burning embers. My father. The one who gave me this flesh. The one who planted his seed in you. He comes to claim what is his. Erika staggered backward, her breath caught in her throat. Memories of that night flooded her mind, the strange traveler, his skin shimmering faintly in the moonlight, his touch burning with unnatural heat, his voice deep like rolling thunder. She had convinced herself he was just a man. A strange, powerful man, yes, but still mortal. But now she knew. He was no man at all. 3 nights later, the sky split open. Not with lightning, but with light that burned green and gold. A strange sound filled the air, like 1,000 drums beating at once. The villagers fell to the ground, covering their ears. Crops bent low as though bowing. The river swelled unnaturally, water foaming as though boiling. And then, he appeared. He walked from the forest, tall and broad-shouldered, his skin glowing faintly as though lit from within. His eyes shone like molten bronze, and his voice carried power even in silence. The villagers scattered, some fleeing into the night, others collapsing in worship. He wore no ordinary clothes, only a dark robe that seemed to shimmer like water under sunlight. Adiku screamed when she saw him. The years had not changed him at all, he looked exactly as he did the night she betrayed her husband. Okeke gripped his machete, his hands shaking. "Who are you?" he demanded, though fear cracked his voice. The man smiled faintly, his gaze never leaving Amarachi. "You would not understand my name," he said softly, his voice echoing unnaturally as though 2 men spoke at once. "But your wife knows me. And that child you call yours is mine." The calm head of Amarachi whimpered in fear, but the fiery head laughed joyfully, stretching its lips into a grin. "Father," it said, almost lovingly. "I have been waiting." Okeke's machete fell from his hand. He stared at Adiku, betrayal etched into every line of his face. She tried to speak, to explain, but no words came. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she dropped to her knees, trembling before the being she had once lain with. The stranger stretched out his hand, and Amarachi rose from the ground as if pulled by invisible strings. The calm head cried and begged, "Mother. Father." But the fiery head only whispered, "At last." The being looked at the villagers hiding at the edges of the square. "You called her an abomination," he said coldly, his voice rolling like thunder. "But she is your salvation, or your destruction. Through her, your world will change forever." As he spoke, the earth trembled. The trees shook violently. Birds fell dead from the skies. And Amarachi's body began to glow faintly, her 2 heads chanting words no one understood. The fiery head's voice was strong, commanding. The calm head's voice was weak, pleading. Together, they wove a sound that split the night apart. Some villagers collapsed, foaming at the mouth. Others clawed at their ears, screaming. The ground beneath the shrine cracked open, revealing a fiery glow beneath the earth. From the chasm came a roar, deep, monstrous, inhuman. Okeke staggered backward, shouting over the noise. "What are you bringing upon us?" The stranger's glowing eyes turned to him, and for the first time, he smiled fully. "The beginning of the end," he said. The fiery head laughed. The calm head wept. And the night of Umuohia turned into a nightmare no one would ever forget. The ground split wider, groaning like a wounded beast. From the crack rose a stench of sulfur and rot that made even the strongest men vomit where they stood. The fire below glowed brighter, and within it something stirred, something massive, ancient, and hungry. The villagers screamed, scattering in every direction. Mothers dragged their children, men threw down their weapons, but the earth itself seemed determined to hold them in place, trembling and cracking beneath their feet. Amarachi floated above the chasm, her small body glowing faintly as though it were the wick of a great flame. Her calm head sobbed uncontrollably, tears streaming down its soft cheeks. "Please, stop. I don't want this," it cried, its voice trembling with innocence. But the fiery head sneered, eyes blazing like twin embers. "Silence. This is what we were born for. This world will bow, and you cannot stop it. The stranger, her father, lifted his hands, and the air bent unnaturally around him. His robe shimmered like water, rippling with strange symbols that glowed and vanished. He spoke in a language no human had ever known, and the crack in the ground widened further. From its depths rose shadows, tall and formless, their shapes twisting like smoke yet heavy as stone. They climbed into the night, their eyes glowing dim red, and their cries pierced the air like knives. The villagers wailed. Some fell to their knees, worshipping the stranger, calling him a god. Others cursed him and fled, hoping to vanish into the forest. But no one escaped the terror filling the night. Okeke, trembling yet defiant, snatched his machete from the dust and charged. "Not my daughter," he roared, swinging at the stranger's glowing form. The blade connected, but instead of cutting flesh, it shattered like glass, leaving only shards at Okeke's feet. The force threw him backward, crashing against the earth. He spat blood, stunned, but his eyes burned with desperate rage. Adiku crawled to her husband, clutching his arm. "Forgive me," she wept. "I never knew what he was. I thought he was just a man." Okeke looked at her, his face twisted with pain and betrayal. "You doomed us all," he whispered hoarsely. Emarachi's calm head screamed, struggling against the unseen power holding her in the air. "Father, no. Please, let me go. I don't want to hurt them." But the fiery head only laughed louder, chanting in perfect harmony with the stranger. Their voices blended, deep and unearthly, shaking the very bones of the villagers who remained. Suddenly, the calm head's eyes flared, not with fire, but with a strange, pure light. It was faint, trembling, but it burned with resistance. "I will not let you," it shouted, its voice ringing like a bell through the chaos. The fiery head snarled, jerking to face its twin. "You are weak. Always crying, always begging. I am the true heir. You will bow to me." But the calm head screamed again, louder this time, and the glow of light pushed against the fiery head's flames. Emarachi's body convulsed, her small arms flailing as the two heads fought for control. One side burned with darkness, the other with light. The sky itself seemed torn, half storm and half calm, thunder on one side, clear stars on the other. The stranger's eyes widened, his voice faltering for the first time. "No, child, you cannot resist me. You are mine," he thundered, raising his hand to force the calm head into silence. But something unexpected happened, the light from the calm head lashed out, striking his chest. He staggered, his robe flickering like fire doused with water. For a moment, his form blurred, revealing glimpses of something grotesque beneath, a being of scales and shifting smoke, a monster disguised as a man. The villagers gasped, their fear rising higher. This was no god. This was something far worse. Okeke, clutching his broken ribs, forced himself up. His eyes met the calm head's, and for the first time, he saw his true daughter there, innocent, terrified, yet fighting with all her might. "Fight him, Emarachi," he shouted hoarsely. "Fight him, my child." The calm head screamed again, brighter this time, light pouring from its eyes and mouth. The fiery head shrieked in rage, its flames crackling violently, and Emarachi's body twisted as though being torn apart. The two sides warred openly now, light against fire, innocence against rage. The stranger roared in fury, his voice shaking the earth. "Do not resist me. You are my blood. You belong to me." But the calm head glowed brighter, and through her tears she whispered, "I belong to myself." The ground shook harder, the shadows from the chasm shrieking louder. Some dissolved into smoke, others clawed at the air, torn between the opposing forces radiating from Emarachi. The villagers clung to each other, torn between hope and despair. And in that chaos, Okeke stumbled forward, blood dripping from his mouth. He fell to his knees before his daughter and shouted with his last strength, "Emarachi, you are not a curse. You are mine, my child. Remember who you are." The calm head's light flared like the sun breaking through storm clouds. For a moment, it looked as though she might win. But the fiery head twisted, grinning with pure hatred. "No, father. You are already too late." The light flickered, the fire roared, and Emarachi's body began to tear between the two powers, her scream echoing through the heavens. The heavens themselves seemed to split as Emarachi screamed. Light and fire clashed inside her fragile body, tearing at her from within. Her small frame shook violently, and every villager who remained felt the earth's heartbeat racing through their feet. Some covered their eyes, afraid to witness what was happening. Others dared not move, frozen between terror and awe. Okeke crawled closer, his body broken but his voice strong. "Emarachi. You are my daughter, not his. You are not a curse, you are a gift. Fight for yourself. Fight for your soul." Ediku sobbed, pounding the earth with her fists. "Forgive me, my child. Forgive me." For the first time, the calm head stopped crying. It looked at Okeke, eyes glowing with faint light but also with something purely human, love. It nodded slowly, as though it finally understood. The fiery head hissed with rage. "You are weak. You cannot stop me. I was born to rule, to destroy, to consume." But the calm head whispered, voice steady now, "If I am weak, then let weakness save them. If I must end, then let it be for love." And then, with one final scream, the calm head released all its light. It surged through Emarachi's small body like a river breaking its banks. The fiery head shrieked as cracks of light tore through its face, burning away its flames. The stranger, the monstrous father, roared in fury as the light struck him, ripping away his disguise. His form split, scales and smoke unraveling, until his body exploded into a storm of ash scattered across the night sky. The shadows clawing from the chasm wailed as the light touched them. One by one, they crumbled into dust, vanishing into the earth. The crack sealed itself with a thunderous roar, leaving only scorched ground where the shrine once stood. When it was over, Emarachi's body fell gently to the ground. Okeke dragged himself forward, crawling to her side. He gathered her in his arms, tears streaking his bloodied face. "My child, my Emarachi." The calm head looked up at him one last time, her glow fading. She smiled faintly, whispering, "Father," before closing her eyes forever. Ediku screamed and collapsed beside them, wailing, clutching her daughter's lifeless hand. Okeke held both mother and child in his arms, rocking them, his heart breaking. But even in his grief, he knew Emarachi had saved them. She had chosen love over power, sacrifice over destruction. By dawn, the village gathered at the square. They found Okeke still holding his daughter, silent as stone. No one mocked, no one whispered. Even those who had hated her now knelt in silence, for they knew they had witnessed something greater than themselves. Emarachi was buried beneath the great Iroko tree, her grave marked not as a curse, but as a child who saved them all. Some said her spirit still lingered, watching the village with gentle eyes. Others swore that on quiet nights, they could hear the faint hum of her calm voice in the wind, carrying peace where once there had only been fear. As the years passed, the story of the girl with two heads became legend. Children grew up hearing not of a curse, but of Emarachi, the child who chose to protect her people, even when the blood of destruction ran in her veins. And Okeke, though broken, found strength in those memories. When the world mocked him, he only said, "She was my daughter. And she saved us." The tragedy ended not with fire, but with light, and with the truth that even in the darkest of births, love can still rise and conquer. This tale teaches that no matter the darkness one is born into, no matter the curse that may follow a name or the blood that runs in one's veins, the choices we make define who we truly are. Amarachi carried the blood of destruction, yet she chose love and sacrifice. It reminds us that even when evil seems destined to win, light can still rise if we choose goodness over power, compassion over hatred. A child once called an abomination became the savior of her people. From her life we learn, never judge by appearance, never condemn what you do not understand, for even in what looks cursed, a blessing may be hidden. The fiery head was gone, burned away by the sacrifice of its twin.